All right, so we just had crypto, and now we're going to talk about energy, and I'm going to bridge that gap between crypto and energy. Beyond number, go up. Bitcoin's role in energy innovation. So I'm Alana, Mediavilla, silent H. So sometimes you will see the H, and sometimes you won't, and sometimes you'll see it in dark gray. I'm an executive producer, director. I just finished Dirty Coin. Well, not just, last year. On 4/20, 2024, we premiered Dirty Coin on the day of the halving. So that was pretty fun in Warsaw. And we have been touring the world. The documentary is now in 5 different languages. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun to work on that. That right there is my link tree, and you can find access to my different links. Okay, so in order to understand if Bitcoin was a problem, that like we've been talking a lot about what Bitcoin does today, but where is it running? There's a backbone, there's a hardware component to the software that we have been talking about. And Bitcoin has gotten a reputation for being an energy hog. It just consumes so much electricity, so bad for the environment. Oh my God, I love Bitcoin, but it's so bad for the environment. I'm sure some of you have maybe heard somebody utter this. So when I went down the rabbit hole, or I started to go down the rabbit hole about understanding if Bitcoin's energy consumption was good or bad, I first had to understand energy consumption, electricity. How is it produced? How is it transmitted? How is it consumed? And I had to kind of bring it back to kind of the basics in order to then see how Bitcoin layered on top of that. So that's what I did. I found out that the grid, I don't know how many of you live in Puerto Rico. Are you aware that we have grid challenges on the island? Well, it turns out we're not the only ones. A lot of the world has a lot of grid challenges. The world is facing aging infrastructure. You have places like Detroit that they built a grid for a great, powerful production city, and that manufacturing left. So now you have a grid that's capable of a big load, but nobody really to consume that load. So there's mismatch between supply and demand, especially with adding more and more renewable resources like solar and wind. We have a high supply during times of the day that aren't necessarily match the demand. And then we have demand that doesn't match the supply. And then and basically, did you know that 20% of renewables that are connected to the grid are curtailed? Basically what that means is electricity is just shot to the ground because nobody's consuming it. And if it goes into the grid, it actually creates problems for the grid as well. So that needs to be regulated. There's also rising demand. So now we have electric cars, we have electric stoves, we have more air conditionings and more rooms in the house and more things. And honestly, energy consumption is tied to GDP. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. But how are we going to meet the needs of the future if we're barely meeting the needs of today? And you also have energy poverty. 2.75 billion people around the world do not have access to electricity every day. That means that they can't rely on having electricity-powered things in their home. 750 million people don't have access to electricity at all. So we have a huge problem. Enter Bitcoin. So how in the world are we going through all these problems, and this energy hungry industry is going to help? Isn't that just going to take away? And that's kind of like the headlines deep, way of thinking about it. But when you dig in a little bit more, I do want to give you guys some perspective on Bitcoin mining. Does Bitcoin consume a lot of electricity? I guess a lot is subjective, but let's put it like this. One container of miners consumes as much electricity as 750 modern American homes in a much smaller footprint, right? So, and let me show you the next picture. And Bitcoin miners don't just have one container. These guys are running up to a gigawatt in some locations of consumption. And the reason why miners mine is because they're able to basically get Bitcoin at a discount. They're getting Bitcoin for their costs of their energy and their costs for their operational expenses. So if a Bitcoin today is 96, 97, they might be able to mine that Bitcoin for 30 or 40 or 20 or 12, depending on where you are in your cost of electricity. So the cost of electricity is 80%, if not more, of the expenses of a Bitcoin miner. And that includes salaries, that includes everything. And so, okay, I was going to go to this slide first, so I'll go back to this one. It's just naturally going into this one. But so the search for cheap energy has basically made miners go to utilities and be like, hey, so you have extra electricity that's being wasted in your middle hours of the day. What if I consume it and then I just turn off my miners when you need the electricity? And then the utility is like, what? Okay, fine. And so that's one way that miners have found that they can find cheap electricity. They consume waste, a lot of renewables, and there's a lot of new renewable generating facilities that are coming up because of different federal incentives and ESG incentives. But what's happening is that you put up this solar plant that it might take 5-10 years for that solar farm to be connected to the grid. So you have it there generating electricity day in and day out. It's not really going towards anything. So you have a ton of waste as well. Landfills as well. Landfills emit methane. You have a lot of waste there as well. We're kind of surrounded by, we're very inefficient with our energy. There are also anchor tenants. One of the issues in Africa has been that they need electricity, but they don't really know it yet. And this is in different places. We visited Malawi and Kenya. 1 minute. Oh my God. And they want to create a new power plant. These people don't have electricity in this particular place in Malawi. There's no demand. They have no refrigerator in their house. They have no air conditioner. So they don't have anything that's going to consume the load. And so how do you finance a new hydro-powered plant, which is how they have, when you say, we don't currently have any customers? Well, you can have a customer that can move in, which is a Bitcoin miner, and they can say, I'll consume all of the electricity that you're not selling to people, and I will reduce, like Lego pieces, my footprint as the people need it. And then they can become an anchor tenant in a new place. And this is currently unlocking dozens of new energy sites around the world, not just Africa. Bitcoin has created a new energy industry. Today, Bitcoin miners aren't just Bitcoin miners. They're also investing in new energy. If you're an energy entrepreneur and you have a way of creating 1 cent per kilowatt hour or 2 cents per kilowatt hour, I know somebody that will fund your idea, because currently they need to be able to keep their cost of electricity low. For some, the margins are pretty low as well. And then, my perspective after seeing this firsthand around the world, we filmed in 4 different continents. We filmed Bitcoin miners and energy companies in 4 different continents. And my perspective is that hash rate is going up. More computers are being plugged in. And the countries that understand how to integrate Bitcoin into their energy plan, countries like Bhutan, countries like Kenya, countries like Malawi, countries like Paraguay, are going to be the countries that ultimately are going to have a better grid than the ones that don't at the end of the day. So thank you so much. There's my link tree again. You can zap me talking about lightning. And there's a mandala gaba if you just want to make some mandalas on your phone.
Hey, we have time for one question and one question or comment. Anyone?
Any questions or comments?
When are we going to start seeing Bitcoin mines financing nuclear power?
They already are. Yeah, there's actually TeraWolf is one of them, and there's a couple of them that they already are, and there's a couple of investors that are specifically only investing in SMRs with Bitcoin mining as an anchor tenant component as well. So it's already happening. Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody. It's awesome to hear all of you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alana.